Hi guys, Jordan from B&P Campers. I'm going to do your handover video on your AutoTrail Mohican. So it's a T-Reg, so I think that's 99. So we're starting with the bonnet here. Got your engine battery over here on the left, various wires and bits and pieces above there, and fuses just here, mainly to do with the split relay, sort of the split charging between the engine battery and the leisure that sits in the back. Engine oil goes in through this cap just here at the top of the engine, and your engine oil dipstick is this orange topped one just here at the front. Power steering fluid, it's just here, and your brake fluid is just up here at the top, attached to the servo down the back. Engine coolant is this one over here, and you see the engine's cold at the moment, and it's sat there just at the perfect line, so you haven't got to worry about that whatsoever. Air filter sits inside here, attached to this little air intake hose, and your washer fluid is over here in the right hand side reservoir there. So obviously it's had its full service, everything's been done on it as you would expect. So it's got the uprated Alco chassis, which would have been done from original with AutoTrail. So the actual original base van is the plate just here, so you got 3.5 ton there, and the Alco uprated chassis is there, gross revenue weight 3,850. So that's the one that you go off basically. And the reason why it's not got axle 3 there is because you haven't got a tag axle rear, so you haven't got 4 wheels at the back rather than 2, you just got the 2 there. So that's under the bonnet. Got your diesel filling point just here. Ignition key needs to go in there to open that up. The engine sort of model 2.8, nice quality engine, don't get many problems with those whatsoever. You've got your electric window. I think both of the front seats swivel round, I'm not sure if they do or not, but you've got this lever just here which actually sends the seat like that. Got my glove box in there, bits and pieces like that. I'll show you around into the cab a little bit more detail around the other side, but just carry on this near side now for a minute. Loads of storage underneath the seat just here. These pipes at the back here, you do need to leave them alone as best you can, because they're the pipes that send around your heating. So if you dent or damage those, then you can possibly sort of reduce the amount of heat that you get pumping around the van. So you need to make sure that you sort of leave them be as best you can. This is your awning winder, so that's just sort of nicely in there. So that's just to wind out your awning up there. This little bit just here is where you lock in your door. So you can push that in and it will lock in place. Your step is manual, so you literally lift it up a little bit and it will just start folding away like that, and then pull it out and down is how you get it to stay down like that. It's nice and solid. You've got a Fiamma lock just here, so when your door is shut you can actually turn this around and lock it over the door here, so you get like extra security, but obviously the door does lock as well. If you want to lock the door from the inside, you can just turn it like this. Well, once it's locked, you turn it to the left, I think it is, and then it will just lock itself in place. You've got quite a few optional extras on this one. So you've got an external 240 volt socket, that's there. External TV aerial point, which is a max view one, so you can get to that from there. These 2 vents down here at the bottom are both for your fridge. So there's another one at the top there because it's a good size fridge in there. But basically this is your fridge vent, so you shouldn't need to get into that for any reason really. But it's there if you need it. Got this little cap just here to hold this door open if you wanted to. So this is your toilet cassette locker. You've got a fresh water flush in here, so if you've got a little bit of fresh water in your tank, you'll be able to flush your toilet. To take it out, lift it up from here and then pull the whole thing towards you. Once you've got it out, all you need to know really is that you empty it out from here. So you just take this cap off, empty it out from there, and the cap itself is actually like a little scale as well, so you can actually measure how much of your blue fluid that you put in. So it's basically a cap full goes in there, and then shake it about. The only other thing you need to know really is you've got a little yellow button there at the back, and when you're emptying this out you need to hold the little yellow button down. So close that back over. Once you've got this closed, you can put your key in there, turn it, and then you won't be able to push this button in anymore, so you can't open it up. I just want to see if there's anything down here. There's not. We'll go on to the offside now so I can show you a few bits over there. So you've got your gas locker down here, which you've got space for 2 of these 6 kilo propane bottles. The 6 kilos are what this sort of van has been made for, or ideally, because you've got these little bits just here which are sort of the perfect shape for them, so they don't move around. Turning the bottle on, it's anti-clockwise around to the left. Turning it off, it's clockwise around to the right. Make sure that you turn these off before you start driving every time. But yeah, so basically all you need to know is you've got a hand wheel regulator on here, so you just turn it around to the right until it comes off, pop it onto your new bottle whenever you run out of gas in this one, and then just tighten it up basically, and then turn it on. These bottles last you a long time. You'd be surprised how long they actually last. 12 volt power just here, in case you have a 12 volt pump that you want to drop into a bucket or something to fill up your fresh tank. Freshwater inlet is this one just here, so if you had access to a hose or whatever, like watering cans, whatever, that's where you fill up your fresh water. And your freshwater drain is that one just there. When you have the Malaga boiler on, your heat will come out from here, and you can actually hear it whirring a little bit, which is actually just the flame, or the fan pumping the flame through. So basically, if you put your hand over here, you feel nice hot air, just to sort of double check that it's definitely working. Leisure battery sits in here, and it looks like a really good size battery actually. They're usually a lot shorter top to bottom than these. So that's a good sort of size leisure battery there. And your hookup point is this one here. You can plug your hookup in and still shut and lock this cupboard. Because of the gap down here, you can actually close the cupboard right up even when the hookup's plugged in still. So that's always a nice thing to have. But yeah, so hookup plugged in means that you can use all of your 3-pin sockets like at home, the ones that are in the van, and it would also give you access to anything that works via the 240 volts as well. So I'll just get in the van now and then I can show you around the cab. Right, so I've got a couple of bits going on in the van as we speak, but I'll just show you a few bits in the cab. So, hazard lights work from this button just here in the middle. Your reversing camera all works from this little screen just here, so when you pop it into reverse, you can just basically turn it on, or I think you can just turn it on whenever the ignition's on as well. But that's there. It's actually a good quality camera as well, so you can see quite clearly what's going on. Indicators are from this left-hand stalk here at the front, and your full beam switch is just one at the back. So don't get confused between these two. Only the one at the front here will actually do your indicator. The one at the back is also the one that you use to flash as well. But yeah, so they're on 2 different stalks. Obviously your washers and wipers are on the right-hand side, just like normal, or like most cars. Side lights, main beam, and this is your headlight aim. So you only really need to use this if you're going to be sort of like towing a caravan or something like that. You need to sort of tilt them around a bit, that kind of thing. But most of the time you don't need to worry about that. You've also got your left and right hand mirror adjusters. So you can actually move the mirrors left and right using this, which actually for the age of the van is really quite unique. They very rarely have that option. And your 2 electric adjusting windows, which again is also pretty rare on a van of this age. 5-speed manual gearbox, reverse is down on the bottom right hand side, and you've got all of your heater controls here, as well as a single DIN Panasonic head unit there. Now I don't know exactly how it all works, or if it does work. I'm assuming it does. It's just not something that we really go through and check as part of the habitation checks. So that powers up, doesn't it? There you go. So it does work. You just have to go through and select your radio station, whatever it might be. Cassette player in there. You probably find that it works better than most new ones, to be honest. Anyway, that's there if you want to use that. But yeah, Right, so that's the cab. Next thing I normally show is the sort of control panel here. So AutoTrail have always had this kind of, it's made by plug-in systems, these ones are, but always quite unique in the way that they have these set up. So they're really, really nice and simple. All you have to do when you come in and want to use anything 12 volt is press this button on here, which I've got on now. And basically what that does is allows anything that runs from the 12 volt, so any ignition, any fans that I've got on at the moment, anything like that, as long as you've got this little light on here with by the caravan symbol, you'll be able to use your 12 volt power. The rest of them are pretty much all just sensors and your pump. So you've got battery voltage level 11.5, so really I want to hook up plugged into this. Ideally your leisure battery voltage there would be sort of like, I don't know, about sort of 12.5, you know, that kind of thing. So when I'm using things like this, I've got the fan on, I've got the Malaga heater on, I've got the fridge on gas. That's all drawing power. So, you know, keep your eye on that battery level. If you had a hookup cable plugged into the van, it would just keep that battery topped up at like 14 volts all the time. So it's always best to have a hookup plugged in if you can. But if not, you know, 11.5 there when I've got everything on isn't too bad whatsoever. I'm pretty certain that when I turn all this off, I'll turn it off there. See there? It's already going back up. So it was just drawing quite a lot of power from the fan there, but that's fine. So, like I said, this one here is your battery voltage in your leisure battery. You can also see how many amps are being drawn. Internal temperature, external temperature, and your freshwater level, so nearly empty, and your pump. So the pump will come on. When you finish using the pump, you do need to switch it off, just like that, just so that you don't run it on and sort of burn it out, basically. But the first thing you want to do, really, as long as you've got fresh water in the tank, which at the minute there's not really much of, which is why it's kind of running on like that. If there was more fresh water in the tank, it would just turn itself off after a little while. But yeah, that's the reason why it's running on like that. But basically, what you want to do before you start using your hot water and things like that, so I'll just switch this off for now. Pump on. Come over to your tap here. Just pull it through on your hot side there. If you get loads of air coughing out at you, then really it means that your boiler isn't quite full and that you shouldn't turn it on just yet. Okay, so again, for now the pump isn't turning itself off because I've not got enough water in the tank. So like I said, if you turn that pump on and you turn your hot water tap on and just loads of air started coughing out at you, then really it means that your boiler's not full. You shouldn't use the boiler unless it's full up. If the water comes through like it did just then it's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with turning it on. That's all good. You can just carry on as you normally would. But yeah, so that's that. When you want to turn all of your 12 volt power off, just press that top left hand button on there that's on there, and that's that. That'll just turn it all off. So 12 volt socket here and two 40 volt sockets there. So these two will only work when your hookup's plugged in. This one here will only work when your hookup's plugged in as well, but when you turn that on, that'll give you access to using this hot plate just here via this dial on the left. When you turn that off, it basically turns all the power off to this hot plate, but obviously, as I said, it's not going to do anything at all when there's no hookup plugged into it. The next one here is your Malaga water heater. So like I said, you only use this once you've double checked that the boiler is full. But if you want to light it up on gas, literally just push to the left, it will light up on its own. And then when it has lit, you get a little orange, little yellow light in there to tell you that it's working or it's operating. So if we just wait for a second, there you go. So there's your yellow light telling you that it's definitely working, and that'll stay on until it turns itself off when it gets the temperature. So that's how you use it on gas only. If you had gas and a hookup plugged into the van, you could go to the right like that, and it'll just basically draw a little bit of power from your hookup cable and light up on gas at the same time. But really, if I'm honest, 9 times out of 10, you'd just be using it on gas, because if you're going to be using it on gas anyway, you might as well just leave it just on gas. It doesn't really make a huge difference how quickly it works, if I'm honest. So just switch it over to gas. is the way to do it, really. And then this one here, I think is just a light switch for somewhere. I'm not exactly sure which light it does, but I'm pretty sure that would be what it is. To get these here to work, lift this little switch up and turn that on. So that tells you your voltage, and it will give you access to using these points here. If you want to turn it off, down like that. Right, so that's that little section there. So if you want to have the 12 volt bits and pieces on, that little switch goes on, like I said. A little cupboard in there that I want to show you. Okay, right, so you've got a 3-burner hob at the top, including the hot plate. Obviously that's a 4th one, but it's not actually a burner. So 3-burner hob, a grill under there, and an oven at the bottom. Underneath here, sometimes they keep the gas isolators, which they have. So you've got 3 gas isolators over there. No, 2 gas isolators over there. So if you wanted to isolate any individual appliance, you can do so from there, just by turning them 90 degrees. It will probably tell you in the handbook what they do, which one, you know, which appliance each one of those does. Or there'll be a little sticker somewhere, but I can't really see it from here. Right, so the way they use this whole cooker is really, really simple. You've got a little diagram under each one of these telling you exactly what they do. So oven, grill, bottom right burner, top right burner, bottom left burner, and the hot plate. So to light any 3 of these burners, the grill or the oven up, push on here for your ignition, and then just push and turn, just like any household cooker, whilst you do that, and it will light up. So it really couldn't be much more, much more simple than that. It's nice and easy. The only other thing I want to tell you is you've got this little sign here: glass lids may shatter when heated. Turn off all burners before shutting the lid. So that's really important. If you obviously, if you had any of these actually lit up and you put it down whilst it was lit, it would definitely 100% shatter. But also, if you lit any of these up and had it working for a little while, was cooking on it, and then turned it all off, and then straight away put this lid down, then it'll do the same thing, because there's still, for about, I don't know, 5-6 minutes or whatever, however long, there will still be quite a lot of heat where the actual burner is. So if you imagine, if it was quite cold in the van, you have cold air on the top of the glass and then boiling hot air underneath it, and then it will just crack, it will just shatter. So just make sure that you leave this all to cool down before you put the lid down. It's not really the end of the world if it does shatter, because you can reasonably easily replace it, but it's also just a pain, for that to happen. It's not very nice, because I've had it a few times where they shatter and then all of a sudden you've got glass everywhere you can imagine. So just make sure that you do that, let it all cool down first. Underneath here you've got loads of storage, huge amount of storage under there. And underneath there you've just got a couple of bits that you don't need to worry about yourselves, but all sort of for our testing and things like that. If you ever needed to get to any pipes or whatever, it's really nice and easy when you've got all that sort of quite easily accessible. So next bit, I'll show you your heating. So the heating itself is really, really simple. All you have to do to light it up on gas is just turn it around to the right like this until you get to the clicker, which you can hear straight away. Push down, it lights up and gives you a little green light, so that's your pilot flame. Hold it there for a minute and then lift it up and turn it around. And that is it. As long as you've got that green light on there, and actually when you're here in front of it, you can hear it, you can hear the flame. But that's the way you use it. Turn it around to here, push down, wait for the pilot to light up, and then turn it around and let go. Back round to this one to turn it off, and that's it. You have also got a 240 volt way of using this as well. A couple more gas isolators in there, just so you know. But basically, if you had a hookup plugged into the van, you can leave that switch there switched on like it is now, so you can leave that where it is. If there's a hookup plugged in and that switch in there is on, then you can also use it on electric. So the first little one here is your fan, all right? So literally that is just a fan that pumps around to all of these little circular vents. So down there in that cupboard, like I showed you outside, those pipes, when you got it here on the fan, that's where the air pumps around to. So if I put the pump on like I've got now, and then lit this up, that's the way that you would use the heater on gas. Okay, so you've got the flame on over here, and you've got the fan on over here. So after about 5 minutes or so, you'll have nice hot air pumping out through all of these little vents that are dotted around the van. All right, so that's how you use it on gas. Turn that off. So the gas is now off. If you wanted to use it on electric, you either go 1, electric with fan, or electric with more fan there, look. So at the moment it won't be doing anything because I've not got a hookup plugged into the van. All right, but basically this little symbol here means electric. So this one here at the end, if you wanted to use it on electric and you had a hookup plugged in, then you'd just be at the end here really. All right, we'll turn that off for now. So that's the way that that works, nice and simple. Okay, now obviously, in fact, actually, before I talk about the fridge, I'll show you the last couple of bits that are down here as well. So, if you wanted to use the gas and 240 volt, or actually it says 230 volts, but it's the same thing really. If you wanted to use the gas and electric switch on your Malaga rather than just gas, you would need to have this switch on here before it would work. So that's your 240 volt isolator for that. Obviously, again, that will only work when your hookup's plugged in, but yeah. Right, obviously you probably know you've had to add a new fridge, which really is not a bad thing whatsoever. It's actually a really good thing. So the old fridge, basically quite often, the older AES fridges, you know, they're quite reliable actually, but when they do go wrong, there's not much you can do about them. You just sort of have to replace it. So got a new fridge in here. So it's a brand new Thetford fridge built to fit in the exact same gap, which obviously, as you can see, it does. A little bit of silicone around the edges so that you don't get any smell coming back into the van. So it's all been fitted in there really, really nicely. Right, so I can quickly run you through this because they're so nice and simple. You've got a little blue light inside here, which is telling you that the fridge is working one way or another, but that basically means it is working. The reason it's so dim and hard to see is because at night you'd be amazed how bright some of the old fridges lights were. So, you know, it'd be dark at night and then all of a sudden you realise you can, you know, there's this great big light in the corner of the room. It's always the fridge. So that's why it's so dim. But basically, I'll just turn it off now so you can see how to work it. So that fridge is now off. There's no gas, there's nothing working, all right? Turn it on because it is an AES fridge as well, so it means it's automatic energy selecting. So you've got A there, hookup, 12 volt and gas. So when I turn this on, it'll go to A, which is automatic. So it will automatically choose which one of the three here, so either 240 volt, 12 volt or gas, it will choose automatically for you which one it thinks is the best one to use. So if I do that, I turn it on. A lights up and gas lights up. So it's automatically selected gas because it knows that I've got the gas switched on, but I don't have a hookup plugged in and the engine isn't running. So the only way to use it is gas. Okay. The 12 volt way of using it will only work when your engine is running. So that's why it knows straight away the only way to use it is gas. Okay. If I actually wanted to change the way that it was working, I press this little square button here, push and hold on it, and then you see that A starts flashing. So now I can choose which one of these that I want to use. So I can flick through 240 volt, 12 volt, gas. So I know that I want to be using it on gas at the moment, so I'll click on that one, choose maximum temperature, and it will light up. All right. So that's how you use this fridge. It's really nice and simple. So now you know how to actually select any of those. I'll just tell you which ones you would need to select. So if you did have a hookup plugged into the van, in my opinion, that's the best way to use the fridge. It basically gets the fridge cold just as quickly as the gas does. and it's just easier, I think. If you've got a hookup plugged into the van anyway, you may as well just use the power from the 240 volt. Whereas if you've got your gas switched on, you know, if you don't have hookup plugged into the van, the gas is brilliant because you can use that anywhere. But if you're using gas, then you are literally using the gas up, aren't you? Whereas if you've got a hookup cable with plugged in, you know, the power's already there. You might as well just use it. So that's that. So if it was me, if I had a hookup plugged in, I'd be switching it to the 240 volt. If there was no hookup plugged in and you were stopped, switch your gas on, light it up via the gas. And if your engine was running and you were driving, you'd need to use 12 volt. Now the reason that let me just sort of like explain that as well. If you basically had a load of beers and whatever else you wanted to put in here, fill it up with whatever you want. If you didn't pre-cool it before you left and chose 12 volt, when you get to wherever you're going, it will still be warm inside there. So what you have to do is you have to pre-cool the fridges before switching over to 12 volt when you're driving. And then what the 12 volt does is it holds the temperature that's in the fridge. The reason for that is that there's two elements in the back of the fridge. A 240 volt element, which is nice and powerful, obviously, and a 12 volt element, which is just not anywhere near as powerful. So you have to pre-cool the fridge down either via the electric element or the gas, and then switch over to 12 volt just for when you're driving, and then switch back to one of the other two when you get there. So that's that. I'll just quickly tell you as well, and it's probably, I don't know if it's boring or not, but I'll tell you. So you've got a split charger, like I mentioned, under the bonnet there. So you've got the engine battery that sits down there, and your leisure battery, which sits down there on the cupboard outside next to the hookup point, don't you? So what you've got is something called a split charger. So you've got wires that basically run from the engine battery all the way through to the leisure. But you've also got what's called a D+ signal. So in that sort of split relay wiring that you've got going from the engine to the leisure, which, let me just explain this quickly. When you start the engine up, your alternator charges up your engine battery like any car or van does. But what a split relay does is it splits that power and splits it between the engine and the leisure. So any time that your engine's running, your engine battery and your leisure battery are both being charged up at the same time. So that means that when you get to wherever you're going, you have full power in your leisure battery and engine. All right. But in that same wiring, you've got a D+ signal, which is the signal that powers up this 12 volt in your fridge. So it sort of spurs off to the fridge and then powers it up so that when you're driving, you can still keep the fridge cool. So that's how that works. I'll turn this off. And when all of these lights have gone off, including the one inside this button, you know the fridge is definitely switched off. In the back, you just got your standard sort of sink just there that all works. There's no leaks or anything nasty like that. All of the cupboards work in the same way, so you have to push these buttons in to open them up and then push them in again to lock them. Really important that you do that, because the absolute worst thing about driving these motorhomes is when you accidentally leave one of the cupboards open or the wardrobe or whatever, and it starts smashing about when you're driving. It's so frustrating. So it's really important that you go around the van and just make sure that you do things like this, putting all this back to where it should be, making sure that it's all back, and sort of, you know, little things like this, making sure that it's all back flat before you head off is just so important, because you know, it will do your head in. If you don't do that, it will do your head in when you drive it. So make sure that you go around and close up all the lockers properly. And the last bit I want to show you really is the toilet, I think. I mean, I know obviously there is a shower in here, but you know, I think it's all quite simple. You just got a hot and cold tap, and you can just adjust the height of the shower there, if you know. But you'll work all that sort of thing out. It's nice and simple. But yeah, the toilet, again, it's really simple, but I don't expect you to know how to use it. So you've got a little button at the back here. So when your pump switch is on, because this runs directly from your fresh tank, so your pump switch needs to be on to use the toilet. You quite literally press the blue button, that'll pump around your flush fluid around the toilet, and then once you've finished, open the flap, drains it into the cassette, and then close the flap back over. And that really is it. So open, close, that's it. Simple as that. So if you want to come through here and lock this door from this side, you can pull it to and then pull this like that, and then that locks it, pulling it like that. Or you can leave it open and but yeah, again, it's one of those things that when you start driving off, that will just start smashing about. So before you start driving off, you want to pull that over like that. Make sure all your skylights are down. So this one is actually, there's a little turn knob just there, so turn that all the way until it stops, like that. Same with this one. The only other thing I want to show you really is on these fans, both of them, they're both roof light fans. So you got in like that, and start spinning the fan around and you've got your speed there. And the other one's the same, which is a slightly different model of fan, but you know, they're always nice and simple to use. Making sure they're all down before you start driving off. Make sure that your gas is switched off in the locker and all the outside lockers are shut. And that's it really. There's not, you know, a huge amount else to show you. These lights just here, I believe, are 240 volt lights. If they're not, I'm sure you'll find a switch for them. But yeah, I couldn't work out which ones there were. I'm pretty certain that they're 240 volt switch lights. That's why I can't find a switch for them. Anyway, right, so if there's anything else you think I've missed out or anything you want going through, then just let us know. But otherwise, we look forward to seeing you soon to collect your van. Thanks very much.